Welcome to the Golf Improvement Podcast, episode 96.
Welcome to the podcast for golf lovers and enthusiasts who are looking to take their games to new heights. Dedicated to custom club fitting, short game improvement, and effective practice to improve your golf game. This is the Golf Improvement Podcast with your host, Tony Wright.
Hello, this is Tony Wright from Game Improvement Golf in Oak Ridge, Tennessee, with the Golf Improvement Podcast, dedicated to sharing useful information on custom club fitting, short game improvement, and effective practice techniques, bringing you the custom club fitting experience of your life and lower scores, always. Well, I hope all of you had a very Merry Christmas. I'm publishing this the day after Christmas rather than on my usual Monday time. I know you're going to enjoy my annual Christmas interview with a really great friend, Mike McFadden, a 30-plus year PGA golf professional from Germany. Mike's done a number of interviews with me in the past. He continues to inspire me and also all of my AGC club fitting friends with his knowledge about how to help golfers learn to improve their golf games and play their best golf. I especially in this interview enjoyed him talking about some elements of variable practice and ways to practice indoors in the winter. So be sure to catch those particular topics as you listen to this today. Enjoy this great interview with my good friend, Mike McFadden. Well, hello, this is Tony Wright with the Golf Improvement Podcast. This is our annual Christmas interview with Mike McFadden from Germany. Mike is, I keep saying 30 plus, it's 30 plus now. You're a PGA golf professional, custom club fitter, sports director, golf improvement guru at the Jakobsberg Hotel and Golf Resort in Jakobsberg, Germany, where the weather is ugly and it's snowing. But we're going to have fun again today talking. So, Mike, thanks for taking the time and being patient to hang in with my Skype issues today.
Or my telephone number issues. Tony, and if we make it two more times, it'll be 40.
Oh.
Not 30 plus. Yeah, we got to do two more and it'll be 40.
Well, we'll remember to celebrate that when it happens, right?
Yeah.
Good. Well, so as you said, we've done that in an interview once a year for the past few years, and I think you and I have a connection because we're always trying to learn things. But I want to pick your brain about what are some of the biggest things this past year that have been the influences on your thinking about how to help golfers play their best.
Well, Tony, the answer is probably going to be a little boring because for me, 2017 was more like an incubation year and not a discovery year. I basically, I came up with a few new things in swinging your arms faster, a few different tools that'll help there that I didn't know about, didn't dig into as deeper earlier. But right now, I just kind of, the stuff that I picked up in the last couple years, I spent most of the year getting better at it. Like understanding the stuff with focus better. Last year we discussed that internal and external path focus stuff and result focus. It was still not new, but relatively new to me. And this year I got deeper into it and know how to use it with my different students better, fluctuate even within a lesson from one to the other, and just to become more effective.
Well, that's a good answer for anybody to be able to have, though. I mean, wouldn't it be great if all of us in our golf games would feel like we've got a little bit to the point where we know all the little pieces. We're going to get back to self-discovery again, right? That we have had enough discovery to be able to do that. So that's kind of cool. And I know you're still working on videos and all those kind of things too. So, well, that's good. Go ahead. You want to say something else?
There's another thing and I know it's something that you've been dealing with yourself on your own game and your own mindset. I've gotten deeper into I don't know, getting better at getting people to think the right way to really improve.
Oh.
And it's all information that I've already had, just wasn't as good as I am now at helping all the people that I deal with, get better.
When you say that, and you said we might go in some tangents, and that's good. Is it a combination of, from your standpoint, I find my thinking to get better is as much about course management as, and I play once a week, right? I mean, there's a little frustration from that, but it's because I'm doing the really great things that I want to do about helping people play better. But a combination of course management, but also going out there and not setting my own personal, how shall you say it, tone of accepting, breaking 80 is enough, right? Breaking 80 doesn't have to be enough if it's in there. So did you get the gist of that? I find course management stuff. I can look back. Yeah, I can look back on course management every time and see 2 or 3 or 4 shots.
Yeah, and that would be, we discussed it last time about different skills, and that would be your cognitive and perceptive skills are improving. You must be doing something in that area, practicing instead of just hitting balls, building the muscle that helps you manage your way around the course with the skill set that you have.
Yeah. I think that's such a huge area. So what are some of the things that you're doing with people then, since you sort of brought that up about helping them into that management end?
Well, okay, the course management.
Yeah.
Oh, we just do lots of different tasks where whatever it is we need to learn, okay, whatever task it is we need to learn. Let's say your miss is always to the right. I'll set up your driver miss. I'll set up some kind of task where when you go to play the golf course, you'll keep score in a way that anything that doesn't go to the right, you get more points for. So I've developed games where whatever it is you need to learn that's going to help you score the best, and say your bad shot off the tee to the right. We'll do something where you get extra points if it goes left or straight, and more penalty if it does go to the right. Let's say you always leave your putt short. So then we can set up a task management thing where you keep a score, you have a way of quantifying it, so that short putts cost you money. You leave it short, it costs you points. You've got to get it to the hole or get it past the hole. It's a whole bunch of different ways you can do that for course management.
So Mike gets a little bit of extra cash if you go out there and do that.
Exactly. I usually say leave it short and get 100 euros more.
You probably know the one that Keith does with people with backstrokes, and if you've seen him, Keith Chatham, and if they get their backstrokes too long, you have to give them $1, right? He puts a little block behind the putter, right? To try to help them.
That's something I do all the time in controlling stroke. With this constraint-led art, restrict the backstroke or dictate the forward stroke by setting up some kind of constraint. And I usually say, okay, we'll do the 100 euro bet. You hit it, I get 100. You don't, you get 100.
Yeah.
That's like the motivation, the reason to handle is a little higher.
So let's go back, I have to do my engineering mind here a little bit and back to some of the questions that I did pose, but I thought that was an interesting discussion. When I did go back as I was driving, I went to that class, the putting class, and driving through the blizzard, and at the same time listening to some of your previous podcasts, and I thought a little bit about, and I know we talked before, but self-concepts and self-learning and self-discovery. How does that integrate with the different things that you're doing with golfers as you're trying to teach them to make changes? Because don't they also have to kind of own it, right? It's one thing to say, yeah, you're doing this, but they have to get to the point where they own whatever it is that you're working on.
Yeah, and I would kind of look at that, and that's why the order of your questions I thought were pretty good, because the first step would be they got to get the right mindset. And then they need to learn to run their brain to run their game. Or like William James said, what you think about, the most you become. And in motor learning, the picture or idea in your head, like the concept or your representation of this, it literally imposes a stamp or stamps itself on motion, your golf swing. So the first step would be, okay, I'm going to go with a certain mindset into this thing, learning golf. And then I'm going to stick with, the right picture in my mind. I got to get pictures, the right picture on my mind. And then the coach has got to give me some tasks, he has to give me things to do that help me develop a feel for that picture.
And some of that.
I'll give you an example. I'll give you an example of this concept where, and it's one you see all the time. I ask hundreds of people, probably literally thousands, what do you have to do to get the ball in the air? What do you think they say? I got to get under it.
Okay. Yeah, right.
Huh? I mean, that's exactly the wrong thing to do. I had an older gentleman here, a friend of mine, Henning Struber. He'd take a golf ball and put it on the top of, hold it in his hand and put it over someone's head and say, well, you're under the golf ball now. How's it feel?
Yeah.
They feel like an idiot. And he says, good, let's forget that concept. We don't need to be thinking like that because it dictates motion. It stamps and embosses itself on your golf swing. What you do, they make like 7 mistakes just because they're thinking they got to get under the golf ball. And the next step when you have better concepts would be, and that's where you're talking about the self-discovery, that then you have to be given the proper things to do so that, you can own it. You figured it out, like we were figuring out why we couldn't telephone, and it was my fault with a telephone number instead of the Skype. You figured it out yourself, and then you own it, and it feels better, and it holds longer. It's actually real learning.
This is one of the reasons why, at least for me, I kind of feel like if I just do something, and we're not exactly going into a later question, if I do a little bit of self-discovery, even if I'm swinging a golf club for 5 or 6 minutes downstairs or something, right, that if I just allow myself to somehow absorb something that's happening from that, eventually I'd say, ooh, I'm doing that. Do you know what I mean? Does that make any sense?
I definitely know what you. Yes, I definitely know what you mean.
Which is one of the reasons that
you figure it out.
Yeah.
And then you get a feel for it.
But that doesn't mean that I don't base that figuring out on like an instructor by you or somebody's guidance on what are some of the best ways to do it. But then you sort of kind of feel your way, and it's like, for example, with little pitches, sometimes I have a tendency to get my hands real close to my body, and then I can't swing the club. I sort of pull it out, right? Does it make you probably can visualize that instead of getting my hands in the right position to be able to make a good swing. And I discovered that in a way, sort of on my own when I was doing that, and just 2 or 3 little swings a day.
Basically, Tony, if we talk about the science part of it, what we're talking about is explicit learning and implicit learning. And if a player is guided or instructed or told what to do, that's not really learning. The player needs to have to find it out for themselves. That's implicit. Just explicitly being told someone what the solution is and how to do it and what to do has little or nothing to do with learning. And that's like pretty much the state of the industry. And you know what the obstacle is that stands in the way from people that actually start teaching self-discovery and actually for the person to start learning self-discovery is this action bias. Everyone has this bias to take action. Me, the trainer, sometimes it's so hard to just sit back, shut up, don't say nothing. And sometimes it's hard to look at, but that's how the human beings actually learn. But this action bias, the need to take action, to do something, gets in the way. And as a coach, the intent is good. I mean, you really want to, you're eager to help the player to get better. But what you need to do, and that's the hard part, is give them time to figure it out themselves. If you set up the task correctly, they'll get there. They'll figure it out. Sometimes it's ugly to look at, but they'll get there. And I see the role of the coach to manipulate the content, meaning the task, so that the golfer, he finds his or her solution to the task themselves. And it could take time, but that's okay. Yeah. And the cool thing, and that's what you were talking about earlier with course management, when you do this and you give them a good task, the cognitive and perceptive skills are being developed along the way. This requires the golfer to look for some functional movement in their skill set that will solve this problem, and it builds the decision-making moogies too.
Yeah, that's neat. I'm going to share 2 things with you from that came out of the putting thing I did with David Orr. And David is so interesting. He's worked so hard to try to understand a lot of things. But what he said in our class was his biggest changes have been almost like what you said, to sort of learn how to say just the right amount of things and not try to give too much, right? And find the right task to help people change their concepts of what they're doing, to help people, embed that in them. Everybody that I watch putting has some concept about what they're doing, and if you can discover that and help them to find, a better way, without just saying do this, it's back to the task stuff, right?
And to get to that
it's
stage
a real
of
trick.
development
It
as a
takes a
coach,
lot of time. Yeah.
I'm just going to say, you need to have a lot of smarts and a lot of experience.
Yeah. Yeah, but I mean, I could tell from listening to him that he just gets tickled when he finds and solves those little puzzles. So, well, that's great. So we have talked in the past about and task-based learning, but I'm just curious about some of your present sort of favorite tasks that you're working with golfers on to achieve as you're doing instruction with them. Maybe some things that we hadn't talked about in the past,
Tony,
Mike. There's too many. This is another hour, right?
There's hundreds.
I know. But yeah, you got to pick a few.
First off, whenever you're setting up a task, we discussed this last time, work backwards. What is it I want to achieve, okay? And then you design the so-called rules, how the task is set up. But I need to know, let's take some putting examples. Let's pretend it's direction. I'll change the environment and use a smaller target. I'll let him putt to a tee or a coin. Maybe from 1 meter, I'll ask him to drop it over the front lip. Hit the back of the hole as hard as you can, let it pop up, but it's still got to go in. I want to see it fall in the left side. I want to see it fall in the right side. And that would be task for putting direction. If it was distance, I mean, I like a lot of the classic ones for distance. Doing this pearl necklace with like 6 or 8 balls, and the closest one to you have to be 8 meters, so you go 8, 9, 10, 11, trying to put them in a row or coming backwards. What I really like is lots of different balls. If you want to have to learn to adjust for distance, putt like with 10 different balls. And I don't mean Titleist, Wilson, or Callaway. I mean a softball, a hard ball, a cue ball, a tennis ball, whatever kind of ball.
Yeah.
And you definitely will get much more acutely aware of what you got to do to change distances. And all the classics like eyes closed with one arm, looking at the hole, I like all those still for tasks for distance control. You had Mrs. Vickers on for focus. We discussed this, I think, online recently. I love the one where we take a 10-cent coin, put different colored stickers, round stickers on it, and I number them or put letters, and then set them all around the hole with balls on them. And your job is to putt it and then say the color and the number or the color and the letter before you follow the ball. That would be a really good one for gaze and focus. For stroke, you just said it with Keith. I always do the stuff where I stick. If someone's like moving their body all around and their eyes and head are moving, that focus one with the coins is really good. But if someone has a stroke where their rhythm's not that good and they take a big backstroke and then stop going through the ball, decelerate, I'll always put something behind really close to the ball to start with. Give them a target that's far away and say, solve it. I'm going to get a cappuccino. And if they are stopping forward, I could also, sometimes they react well to that. Sometimes they don't. So the other side of the coin is I'll put a constraint in front and have them, they have to go that far. You have to go, you can't stop. You have to go that far. Like 2 tour sticks on a couple tees where the club has to at least go to the tour stick and the ball can roll under it. And one of my favorites is routine. With routine, we do some tasks where we change the routine a whole bunch of times, a whole bunch of different routines. One would be you set up to different distances and you hit 4 to 6 balls in a set period of time, and it's short. So you get to look out there to where it's got to go, and you don't got a whole lot of time to hit those 4 to 6 balls.
Or overanalyze it, right? You just kind of go on instincts.
Yeah, it's usually that I hate playing with golfers that take forever in putting. I mean, it's not that complicated. Figure it out and then putt it. And usually that's a good one for people who stand over the ball too long or just take too long in all together. We do another one where you get no practice swings. You've got to figure it out without a practice swing. We do another one for routine where you turn your back to the ball and you have 5 seconds to turn around and go putt the ball to the different targets. And we do one where you get one practice swing and where you get two practice swings. So the whole time I'm giving them a whole lot of options for what to do before the putt, and they'll figure out which one works best for them.
Yeah. Well, that's a good smattering of a few things out of the hundreds, right?
Hundreds. Hey, what we could do next time is you don't ask me any questions, and I just give you a whole bunch of really cool games you can play. You can pick a subject, or we can go through. We can do just putting and do all the cool games to improve your skills in putting.
Well, you saying that, that could create a problem for you because somebody has to be the 100th podcast. So, but and that's coming up about 4 from now. But I like the Christmas idea though, so that's okay. So now,
I like the Christmas idea too, and I always have time now too, Tony. So that's good.
Yeah, you're not on the road a lot. So, now how about a few in terms of obviously your folks are indoors with the snow, and are there any sort of specific things a little different than the things you said before on some of the indoor things that you give them as tasks to work on and achieve self-discovery and things like that?
I mean, someone who doesn't putt in winter, especially if they don't have a chance to go outside, they're not very smart, and they don't love golf.
Yeah.
I mean, winter is a perfect time, especially if you need some swing changes. Some of the things we're talking about you can do indoor, but you have an internal task focus, maybe how you're moving the putter, how you're moving your body, how you set up, or how you do whatever. Great to do in winter because you can make it a habit, and then when spring comes, you can worry more about distance control and green reading. So first off, if you're serious about golf and you want to get better, I'd definitely figure out some things to do with your putter in your hand in winter. For instance, again, I just said it, every kind of ball. Great thing to do in winter, every kind of ball. If you got swing changes to do, I would recommend not doing it without any form of feedback. You need some form of feedback. This internal task-focused stuff, like let's say your coach tells you your wrist is cupped at the top and you need to get it flatter, then of course I would have you do each side a few times and get an idea of what it feels like to be cupped and to be flat. And it'd be nice if you did it in front of a mirror or something so you do have some feedback. And winter is a great time to do that. And you can do like just a couple swings. I say leave a golf club behind a curtain. And every time you see the curtain, go grab the golf club and do 3. Do cupped, do the other direction, bowed, and then do the middle. And you'll figure out one where the ball flies better for you when the season comes, but at least you have a feeling for all 3 if we know that that's something you need to learn. And if your swing's okay, which I think more people's swing's okay than not, and it's timing they should be working on and not the form. What I said before would be more for someone who needs to change form for function. But if your swing's okay, I like doing stuff like, I like saying you want to learn fast, move slow. I like doing stuff like Tai Chi swing. Just do your swing real slow, 8 to 10 seconds. Or do isometric exercises. Stop and hold it at 9 o'clock. Stop and hold it with your left arm at 9 o'clock. Stop at the top and hold it, maybe 4 to 6 seconds. Stop at impact. Try just doing address, impact, preview, impact. Those are great things you can do in the winter if your swing's okay. And I would recommend never doing more than 5 minutes. 5 minutes would be, I wanted to do a big training day. Do it just a few times, but do it often.
Yeah.
Start new again, morning, evening, or morning, lunch, and dinner. Just do it a few times and do it often. And do it with you're doing the swing changes. Do it with feedback. If your swing's okay, do it slower, in some form or another slower.
Yeah.
But winter's a great time to change technique or deepen your technique.
I think you said something though. There was a consistent theme in it to me, and it was not simply. I mean, obviously, you're trying to get some kind of emotion to some point, to a certain way, but practice around the edges, right? Practice with a cupped wrist. Practice with a bowed wrist. Feel where it is that you're really trying to get it, rather than just trying to practice for perfection. Or if putting. Practice what happens when you're pulling it. Practice what happens when you're pushing it and hitting it straight. Or practice adding loft and practice delofting. And excuse me.
If someone's like you, who has an indoor place with a net and a flight scope than hit balls and see how does it fly when I do that edge, or how does it fly when I do the other side. That would be, or how is my impact alignments? That would be great if they could get that feedback too for indoor.
But I really like the ideas of being around the edges a lot, you know. So and when you're not seeing the ball, so you know, obviously, I don't have the flight scope at my house, but I have it at my fitting center. But you know, just being able to experience those different feels and find out, you know, what it's taking to get to where you want to go is really valuable. So. Yeah.
And what basically happens, at least my experience, is if you work on the edges, the middle's easier.
Yeah.
Meaning if I can hook and slice, and I can hit it high and low anytime I want, then to hit a decent ball flight from direction and trajectory, it's not as difficult as if I couldn't do, because usually you're on your chocolate side. There's one side you can do better. If you can't do the other, then the middle is often difficult.
Yeah.
And if you can do both, the middle seems to me for everyone and even like I would call it advanced beginners. I practice this kind of stuff with golfers that have a handicap 36. But they have a decent fundamentals as far as grip and address position. The club moves okay, and body's not completely in the way. We'll train like that all the time.
Yeah, great stuff. Now, we talked about this long ago, but you know, it's coming up more and more about hitting the ball farther and swinging faster. And, you know, I keep seeing posts almost every day about somebody doing something in this area, and I have more friends doing it. And, you know, we had that huge post on the AGC forum about it. Maybe go and revisit that a little bit in terms of, you know, talking about helping people to hit the ball further by swinging faster. Because it's a big winner for people.
We could thank Mr. Brody for that. Or distance definitely matters, and everyone knew, all golfers knew that anyway. Just now we know it more for a fact. But you know my thought on that. I believe everyone can learn to swing faster. Everyone, unless you're injured or something, you can learn to swing faster. And there's a lot of tools out there. We've always used stuff like pulls or a tour stick and make this swoosh thing, and then someone comes up with an idea and patents it and turns it into something they can sell. But it's all basically the same thing. I believe the first thing you need to learn to do is swing your arms faster. And everyone can learn to do that. And you can also learn, if you're a little more athletic, to use your body better to accelerate your arms even more. But the person who might not be the most athletic or fit, they can still learn to swing their arms faster. And if I were to take like a lesser athlete, I'd first have them stretch. And then I do some underload training, like I said, with a pull, you know, a grip with no head and make it swoosh, or an orange whippy, or these swooshed thing there that you can hear it. If the person's a better athlete, I'd still have them stretch. But then I'd start with overspeed training, and that's this underload, overload training that you see a lot with and a lot on tour. I'd go to superspeed.com. Sorry, it's a shameless plug for them. But get their equipment and get the protocols and start doing it. But you got to be a little bit more in shape, a little bit, and you should probably stretch and warm up before and start with the introductory protocol. And if you get a good athlete, I'd still start with stretching because if you have disbalances, none of this stuff's going to help you. And I do the overspeed training that the better golfer's doing, but then I'd also add overload training with the speed change. And you can also go to their website to see what they do. But what they do is they offer more progressive resistance. The underload training is more for your it's like to learn to recruit and fire along a neural pathway faster, which is really good. And that's why, I was using pulls, teaching people to make this swoosh after the ball 30 years ago. We knew that was instinctively something good, and especially for the really slow person. And the overload training, the chain, it improves the length shorten cycle of the ligaments and tendons, and that's great. But what's the best about both of these things that are out there on the market now is you're using the same movement pattern as the golf swing. It's circular, it's not linear. Okay, you're using it close to the same speed because the weights aren't that far away. You're using the same muscle contraction pattern, and with the chains, the resistance is a little higher, so you're strengthening your muscles and your skeleton. So the benefit, I think, for him, what a lot of people learn alone is you can't do these types of training gripping the club real tight. You don't have to tell them to, because again, this is self-discovery. You don't have to tell them to loosen your grip. They figure out I can't swing that thing very fast when I strangle it.
Yeah, right.
And the wrist will soften up a little, get a little oilier.
Yeah. Well, anybody can swing faster. That's really great news for a lot of people. I can think of a couple of my friends that I play with that I'll be afraid if they do that. But
the first focus should not be on I'm going to improve my kinematic chain and my X factor, and I'm going to learn to separate my upper body and my lower body, unless they're already good. Yeah. But the first focus should be on swinging their arms faster, and I believe everyone can learn to do that.
Just have that. Again, back to concepts, right? That's the most important thing. And if you're thinking about doing that, it'll make it easier to do that, right?
Well, you know what the number one common denominator is in all long hitters?
Okay.
They want to be long hitters, and they think they're long hitters.
Yeah. They think they can hit it out of sight.
Their job is knock it out of the park. And that's what they feel like they were put on earth and became a golfer for. They want to hit the ball far. That's the first step. That's that concept. That's that mindset. And, okay, the lesser athlete should have the mindset, I'm going to learn to hit it longer.
Did you watch the World Long Drive last year?
No, only highlights. I only saw highlights.
What was so interesting about it to me, I mean, they all obviously have that, but the guy who won, boy, his technique was pretty amazing, too. I don't know if you caught that when you watched it. I forget his name, but I mean,
I forget his name too, but I can see him. And
it was fast, but boy, oh boy, I mean, it didn't look like he was. It just looked a little different, but it was pretty darn good. Now I'm sure all of them are trying to do all that stuff, but all they care about is hitting one in the grid. So yeah, it's great stuff. I enjoy watching that. Well, Mike, we did it again. We're kind of at the end, but I think it was another great interview and a lot of great things for golfers today. So, as always, you get the final word here before we wrap up.
Tony, I'm probably going to sound repetitive again because I just believe that it's so important. I think if there's any take home that anyone can, and I know I've seen the changes that you're making, that you need to change the way you think. My final word was, if you want to get better, one of the things that separates human being from the rest of the animals on the planet is volition. That's the will to choose. And if I could give you a take home for a New Year's resolution, is choose to have fun. Choose that you enjoy. We're playing a game. Golf is a game. We have a luxury here that we get to earn money and have fun and be with people and travel the world playing a game. So start by choosing to have fun. And if you can't do that, my recommendation would be do something else.
Find something else you can have fun doing. Yeah.
Yeah, fall in love with the process. Should you keep score? Yes. Even and especially, which most people don't do, in practice, because that's part of the process. Tony, as always, it's been an honor and a privilege to be able to be with you again here before the holidays. It's only the giving that makes you what you are, and I want to just thank you again for all the giving you do so that we can all perform better at this great game we love.
Well, it's really been a fun ride over these last 3 or so years to do these interviews, and I always learn something, so that's good. And so thanks again for taking the time, and I'm sure we'll talk before next Christmas, but have a Merry Christmas with your family and all those grandkids. And
yeah, we're on 5 now. I just made myself a new telephone case with picture all 5 on the back.
Oh, wow. That's pretty good.
Proud granddaddy. Yeah.
Well, you take care, and again, as you know, as we said in the beginning, just hang in for a minute, but appreciate you, Mike. Thank you.
Okay. All the best, Tony.
www.gameimprovementgolf.com.
Mike, thanks for that interview. And as we talked about, it was kind of interesting doing this interview because Skype changed their software on the world sometime before I started trying to record it, and getting that all worked out was a little bit interesting, but we did it. I put a link in the show notes to Mike's True Custom Club Fitter website, And yes, this site is in German, but you'll see some things that are of interest if you do go to that site. And I've also put this, what I call Mike's famous quote related to task-based learning. One of the first things I ever heard him say, I think somewhere about 6 or 7 years ago at an AGCP roundtable forum. The task leads to the solution. Learning is the repeated attempt to solve a task, not the repetition of the solution for a specific task. Think about that as you do what you're attempting to do to improve your golf games through practice. Well, that's it for today and for 2017. Happy New Year. In 2 weeks, my now annual 2-part highlight podcast with great information snippets from each of the podcast interviews that I did with some terrific people in 2017. See you in 2 weeks, and again, Happy New Year.
Game Improvement Golf, your source of information and inspiration to become an exceptional golfer now. www.gameimprovementgolf.com